apparently that it was imposing enough that it looked like it was a threat to the rest of the tribes, who are now considering going to war against the other tribes. Like, it seems like the nation of Israel at this point has barely been established, and they're already thinking about fighting each other. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. All right, looking at Joshua 22 now. So it seems like all the land dividing and, figuring out cities of refuge, cities for the Levites, seems like all that stuff is figured out. Like, everybody has their land established where they're going to live within the promised land. So I guess we're just kind of seeing what happens from there. So yeah, here we go. Joshua chapter 22. Then Joshua called together the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. He told them, "You have done as Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and you have obeyed every order I have given you. During all this time you have not deserted the other tribes. You have been careful to obey the commands of the Lord your God right up to the present day. And now the Lord your God has given the other tribes rest, as he promised them. So go back home to the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you as your possession on the east side of the Jordan River. But be very careful to obey all the commands and the instructions that Moses gave to you. Love the Lord your God, walk in all his ways, obey his commands, hold firmly to him, and serve him with all your heart and all your soul." So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went home. Yeah, so all this time that they had been fighting within the stuff we read in the book of Joshua, these 2.5 tribes already kind of had their land figured out. And in fact, it was probably just the fighting men from those tribes that went across the Jordan River to help conquer everything else, so the other tribes of Israel could get their portions of land. But they stuck to the path, however you want to word that there, stayed the course, and followed through on all that. Because if they didn't, they weren't going to get the land that they said they wanted on the east side of the Jordan River. Or at least that was part of the motivation. Moving on to verse 7. Moses had given the land of Bashan, east of the Jordan River, to the half-tribe of Manasseh. The other half of the tribe was given land west of the Jordan. As Joshua sent them away and blessed them, he said to them, "Go back to your homes with the great wealth you have taken from your enemies, the vast herds of livestock, the silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and the large supply of clothing. Share the plunder with your relatives." So the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the rest of Israel at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. They started the journey back to their own land of Gilead, the territory that belonged to them according to the Lord's command through Moses. Okay, so I don't know why it feels like it needs to specify what happened with the half-tribe of Manasseh. I guess just to also help delineate and make sure we know that, okay, that was just half the tribe of Manasseh, the other half is in this different spot, and so people would know, those who would be reading/hearing this initially, that, like, this is the portion of the tribe of Manasseh we're talking about. So yeah, they all went back to their homelands on the other side of the river. Verse 10, "But while they were still in Canaan, and when they came to a place called Geliloth, near the Jordan River, the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh stopped to build a large and imposing altar. The rest of Israel heard that the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had built an altar at Geliloth at the edge of the land of Canaan on the west side of the Jordan River. So the whole community of Israel gathered at Shiloh and prepared to go to war against them. First, however, they sent a delegation led by Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, to talk with the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. In this delegation were 10 leaders of Israel, one from each of the 10 tribes, and each the head of his family within the clans of Israel. So, first off, imposing altar? Why would you want to... I could understand wanting to build an altar to mark the occasion and say, all right, this, represents us helping you conquer all this land. But, imposing? I don't know. And apparently that it was imposing enough that it looked like it was a threat to the rest of the tribes, who are now considering going to war against the other tribes. It seems like the nation of Israel at this point has barely been established, and they're already thinking about fighting each other. It's a rather... I don't know. It falls in line with the characteristics of Israel, the people thus far. So it's not super surprising, but come on, people. Why you gotta mess things up so quickly, so often? Footnote there. The Hebrew might just say, to the circle of stones, and not give it a proper name, so to speak. But I guess this might be a name that was given to it at some later time. But anyway. Verse 15. When they, I assume they meaning the delegation or whatever, when they arrived in the land of Gilead, they said to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, the whole community of the Lord demands to know why you are betraying the God of Israel. How could you turn away from the Lord and build an altar for yourselves in rebellion against him? Was our sin at Peor not enough? To this day we are not fully cleansed of it, even after the plague that struck the entire community of the Lord. And yet today you are turning away from following the Lord. If you rebel against the Lord today, he will be angry with all of us tomorrow. I get, they're saying it's built in rebellion. I don't know if that was an assumption just based on the imposing nature of it, or if there's more detail that we're missing here to make it more obvious that it would have actually been a rebellious act. But I don't know. That's not quite lining up to me. Maybe that'll make more sense later. Okay, verse 19. If you need the altar because the land you possess is defiled, then join us in the Lord's land, where the tabernacle of the Lord is situated, and share our land with us. But do not rebel against the Lord or against us by building an altar other than the one true altar of the Lord our God. Didn't divine anger fall on the entire community of Israel when Achan, a member of the clan of Zerah, sinned by stealing the things set apart for the Lord? He was not the only one who died because of his sin. So they're saying it's rebellious because it's a new altar kind of marking the same occasion, but the one before was the one that God had actually commanded to be set up to remember that. Or at least that's my understanding. So, it's basically deemed rebellion because it's more than what was commanded / something that wasn't commanded by the Lord. Or at least that's the argument. Footnote. Hebrew term here refers to the complete consecration of things or people to the Lord. Okay. As far as the whole, I guess, things set apart. But that's also the same word that we usually, or at least given the description of the Hebrew term here, it seems like it would be the same Hebrew term that was used before, translated as like consecrated. And or in some cases was used and translated as like destroyed. So same word as those previous instances showing up here. But anyway, I digress. On to verse 21. Then the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered the heads of the clans of Israel. The Lord, the Mighty One, is God. The Lord, the Mighty One, is God. He knows the truth, and may Israel know it too. We have not built the altar in treacherous rebellion against the Lord. If we have done so, do not spare our lives this day. If we have built an altar for ourselves to turn away from the Lord, or to offer burnt offerings, or grain offerings, or peace offerings, may the Lord himself punish us. The truth is, we have built this altar because we fear that in the future your descendants will say to ours, "What right do you have to worship the Lord, the God of Israel?" The Lord has placed the Jordan River as a barrier between our people and you people of Reuben and Gad. You have no claim to the Lord. So your descendants may prevent our descendants from worshiping the Lord. Okay. So there's the explanation for why they built the altar, as a reminder to those on the other side of the river that, these folks on the east side were also the same people. They also worship the Lord. So let's not, make assumptions that they don't, or question them too much on that just because we're physically separated by the river. Verse 26, still those 2.5 tribes speaking. So we decided to build the altar, not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a memorial. It will remind our descendants and your descendants that we too have the right to worship the Lord at his sanctuary with our burnt offerings, sacrifices, and peace offerings. Then your descendants will not be able to say to ours, "You have no claim to the Lord." If they say this, our descendants can reply, "Look at this copy of the Lord's altar that our ancestors made. It is not for burnt offerings or sacrifices. It is a reminder of the relationship both of us have with the Lord. Far be it from us to rebel against the Lord or turn away from him by building our own altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices. Only the altar of the Lord our God that stands in front of the tabernacle may be used for that purpose." Okay, so because it also, I guess, resembled that altar at the tabernacle, there might have been some concern that it was going to be used for other offerings and other such things that would not have been authorized by God and would have been out of line with the commands that had been given. Because the offerings had certain regulations that needed to be followed, and only certain people could perform those, and only really at certain places. In fact, maybe even really only one place. But with how spread out they are, I'm not 100% sure on the accuracy of that detail. But these 2.5 tribes are saying, no, we didn't build it for sacrifices. We're not disobeying God. This is just a memorial. This is a reminder that we worship God too. Okay, verse 30. When Phinehas the priest and the leaders of the community, the heads of the clans of Israel, heard this from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they were satisfied. Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, replied to them, "Today we know the Lord is among us, because you have not committed this treachery against the Lord as we thought. Instead, you have rescued Israel from being destroyed by the hand of the Lord." Then Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, and the other leaders left the tribes of Reuben and Gad in Gilead, and returned to the land of Canaan to tell the Israelites what had happened. And all the Israelites were satisfied, and praised God, and spoke no more of war against Reuben and Gad. The people of Reuben and Gad named the altar Witness, for they said, "It is a witness between us and them that the Lord is our God too." And footnote there at Witness, some manuscripts lack this word, but it would still have been named something like that, because, like, with their literal naming of things, it would have been something related to being a witness between them and the other tribes. So, basically, at this point, instead of any fighting happening, which they thought was maybe going to be necessary, because I guess it would have been to, purge the evil, the idolatry, and all that kind of stuff from any of the promised land, any of the tribes of Israel. If they were using this altar for other sacrifices and turning away from God in that way, then the fighting would have been necessary because of that. But since that wasn't the reason, and it was just a reminder, that could actually in future generations help keep them from disobeying God and fighting against each other when they're not supposed to, or, doing other bad things to each other that they weren't supposed to, then they were all satisfied by this explanation. It's like, okay, we're not going to fight. Let's just go back. Tell the people not to fight either. We're all good. So, yeah. That's pretty much it. I don't have too many other thoughts, so it was pretty much just Eastern tribes going back. They set up an altar. There was discussion over why the altar was made, and once everybody was satisfied, they all go home and take it easy. Maybe for a little bit at least. Alright, so, well, if you've watched this far into the video, you've already heard the description of what happened in the chapter. No need to go over that again. So, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. If you're seeing this over on Rumble, give me a follow there. Either way, look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. Make sure also to look at the Discord link specifically within the description if you want to, be more engaged with the community and interact between videos and all that kind of stuff in more ways than just the comment section. But anyway, that's all I've got. So I hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.